Do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indie Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indie Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indie Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there, subscribe, hop in the chat to be part of the conversation. Maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith. If you would like to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also you can also listen, via that Indie Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you wherever you download your apps. What's going on? Welcome in. More Myles Turner thoughts today. What is the Pacers season going to look like next year? The Fever beat the Lynx last night to win the Commissioner's Cup. I didn't talk about this at all yesterday, but Caitlin Clark was voted the 9th best guard in the WNBA. Trust me, we're going to get into that. Zach Hicks joins the show at 10:20. We're going to talk about Colts training camp, some of the different storylines to look at. Zack Gray coming up at 11:40. He's going to have bets. This is my last show of the week, so you know that we had to find a time to get Zack Gray on the show. Now, I want to start with the Myles Turner news because that is still the lead thing. I get it. The Fever won last night, but let's be honest. Caitlin Clark didn't play, so you probably didn't watch. So Myles Turner signs with the Bucks, and there are all these different reports coming out about how much he was offered in terms of money to stay with the Indiana Pacers. I'm reading one right now that apparently he was offered 4 years, $95 million to stay with the Pacers, and he left. That would have been about $23 million or a little over $23 million a year. The Bucks paid him a little under $27 million a year. So he left over a $3 million difference. I don't blame him. $3 million, that's a lot of money. Okay. Don't blame him in the slightest. There's another report out there that apparently the Pacers only offered him, 3 years at $60 million. There's a million different reports on how much money he got offered. I don't really care. I don't. Look, I think everyone, if you got a phone call and someone was like, hey, we'll pay you $24 million a year to stay, and then someone else called you and was like, hey, we'll pay you $27 million to move here, I think you're going to take the one that offers you the extra $3 million a year. That's what I would have done. I can tell you right now, no doubt in my mind. So I don't blame Myles Turner for leaving. Go and get your money. Seriously, I don't blame these guys at all. So because Myles Turner has now left, the Pacers have to find a center. And I do think that they're going to try to find somebody. I think they're going to try and bring someone in to play center because they need one. Okay, like the idea of Tony Bradley playing real minutes doesn't sound great. The idea of Isaiah Jackson being the starting center doesn't sound great. I like Isaiah Jackson as my backup, not as my starting center. And if the season started today, which thankfully it does not, he would be the starting center for the Indiana Pacers coming off of this Achilles tear. James Wiseman, he's a free agent. He was bought out and waived by the Raptors. If the Pacers wanted to, they could go back and bring him in, take a flyer on a guy who's very talented, but just hasn't really worked out anywhere quite yet. That would be a halfway decent option. DeAndre Ayton makes a lot of sense. I don't like DeAndre Ayton. I think he's a bit of a problem. The Athletic had a report yesterday that he's a bit of a locker room issue. And the best way to get guys to straighten out is to give them a 1-year deal worth not a lot of money. Because while DeAndre Ayton achieved his goal of getting a second contract, you know what DeAndre Ayton would probably really like to do? Get a third contract. Seriously. And DeAndre Ayton makes a lot of sense. He's not going to be super expensive. He's got a lot of talent. We know that the Pacers like the talent. They gave him an offer sheet 3 years ago in 2022. Thankfully, the Phoenix Suns matched, and he went back to play for Phoenix, and then they traded him within that same year. So we know that the Pacers like the talent. We know that the guy's talented. I mean, he's the number one overall pick. He was taken number one overall over Luka Doncic. That's how good of a basketball player this guy is. And like when you go through the numbers, it's hard not to like the guy. He's a career double-double guy at 16.5 points and 10.5 rebounds, shooting 59% from the field and 76% from the foul line. A lot of his work is done in the paint, at the bucket. He's a good rebounder. Like, there's a lot to like with DeAndre Ayton. The issue is all the off-the-court stuff. Is he going to be on time? Is he going to work to improve his game in the offseason? Is he going to work out? Is he going to thicken up a little bit? Because the guy's kind of skinny. That is the question when it comes to DeAndre Ayton. And if there's any year to find out, it's this year when you're not going to be very good because you don't have a real starting center and your best player's out for the year with an Achilles tear. So DeAndre Ayton makes a lot of sense, even though it does seem like he's probably going to be a Los Angeles Laker. And if that happens, oh my gosh. The way that guys are discussed when they go to the Lakers versus anywhere else is so funny. Like, if the Pacers were to sign DeAndre Ayton, the storyline would be something along the lines of, the Pacers signed this locker room issue who's late to meetings and practice and skips rehab. All that is in the report from The Athletic. That is not a made-up thing. Whereas if he goes to the Lakers, it's going to be, oh, man, the Lakers just grabbed former number 1 overall pick DeAndre Ayton. Alert the world. The Lakers are about to set the basketball world on fire. Anyway, DeAndre Ayton makes a lot of sense for the Indiana Pacers. Michael Scotto, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He runs the Hoops Hype website, which, to be fair, Hoops Hype, not exactly the most reliable place. He reported a couple days ago that the Pacers were interested in trading for Suns center Nick Richards. The Suns obviously drafted Malawak out of Duke, and they made a trade for the other Charlotte Hornets center, Mark Williams. So, they have 3 centers. They don't need Nick Richards, even though they will at some point because Mark Williams is probably going to get hurt. He seems to get hurt every year. And Nick Richards, I don't think would be a bad guy to take a flyer on, bring him in. Maybe he figures it out. Maybe he ends up being really good. I don't know. But last year, in 57 games, he averaged 9 points and 8 rebounds. That's not bad. You can live with that. He shot pretty efficiently from the floor, 59%. Okay, didn't attempt a 3, did shoot 74% from the foul line. This is a guy who's going to work around the bucket. By the way, he averaged that only playing about 22 minutes a night. If he plays 28, he's probably a double-double guy, which I think that if you're the Pacers, you can live with given how cheap Nick Richards is and would be. You could probably get him for a second-round pick. Okay, and he can't be any worse than Thomas Bryant. So Nick Richards seems like a guy that makes a lot of sense for the Indiana Pacers as well. So very intrigued to kind of see what they do with that position. Maybe they leave it. Maybe they're fine with not being very good. Maybe they want to go get a Cam Boozer or give themselves a chance at getting a Cam Boozer, a guy who's going to come out of Duke and be really, really good pretty quickly, it seems. But that's the thing. The Pacers don't have to get a center this summer. They don't have to. They're going to be bad no matter what. Simple as that. And they could get a center or a big in the draft this next season. Cameron Boozer's a power forward. He's 6'9", so he's probably not going to fill that center role. But there's a guy at Houston. I'm going to butcher his name. His name is Chris Kinnick Jr., right? He's a big 6'10" guy who's going to be a freshman at Houston this next year. We'll see if he even ends up being a consistently good player or not. You could probably go look at another name that I get to butcher. Yaxel Lindenborg, power forward, but he's a big power forward. He's like 6'10", out of Michigan. Another good player. He's going to be a senior, so they could probably grab him a little bit later in the draft. Patrick Ngongba is a 6'11" sophomore. He's a center at Duke. Didn't get to play much last year because of Malawak, but that's another potential center option for the Indiana Pacers. So they don't have to address that need right now, but at some point, they're going to have to fill that center position. So what is next year going to look like for the Indiana Pacers? What's the emphasis going to be? Because it doesn't seem like they're going to win a ton of games. I love Siakam. I think everyone in Indiana that understands basketball understands the value that he brings and how good of a player he is. But all the years that he was in Toronto, after Kawhi Leonard left, and he was the best player on that Toronto Raptors team, they didn't do much. If he's your best player, you're not going to win a playoff series. Or it's going to be really tough to win a playoff series. And so next year, I think is going to be really a lot about the young guys. It's going to be about Jarris Walker and Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard. 35 points a game just left the starting lineup for the Indiana Pacers next year between Myles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton. Benedict Mathurin's going to get a lot of shots, and he's going to score a lot of points. I'm telling you right now, Benedict Mathurin is going to score 1 million points, and people are going to be excited because he's going to average like 25 points a night. And everyone's going to be like, oh, the Benedict Mathurin bump is here. The Benedict Mathurin leap is here. And that's not necessarily going to be true. He's going to score more points just because he's going to have the ball more. And, like, that's great. I get it. That's going to excite people. But that, to me, will not indicate whether or not he got better. He's got to shoot the basketball better. He has to become a more efficient player. The assist numbers need to go up significantly. You know, like he averaged 16 points on 46% from the field. That's a pretty solid number. Only shot 34% from three. He was at 37% his second season. Like, it's got to get, we got to get back up to shooting 37% from three if he really wants to be a legitimate number one option. Okay, he's got to improve the playmaking. He's averaging less than 2 assists per game for his career, and part of that is role. You know, like, he's supposed to come in off the bench and score 1 million points. Like, that's kind of what he's supposed to do. TJ McConnell's really more of the facilitator. But that's going to change this next year when he's starting as shooting guard. And he just naturally has the ball more. Like, he's got to improve the playmaking, and he has to become a slightly more efficient three-point shooter because 34% just isn't good enough. Andrew Nembhard, he's going to play point guard all year. And I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. He's got to develop a more consistent jumper. If not, then it'll be a really tough year for him. And I think, in turn, it'll be a really tough year for the Pacers offense. Like, you have to have guys, guards more specifically, who can make threes. 29% from three last year. Not good enough. And I know it doesn't feel like he's that bad of a shooter because 29%, that's not good. Because, you know, in the playoffs, he just, like, doesn't miss. All of a sudden, in the playoffs, he's just like, yeah, I'm actually going to be amazing now, and I'm going to shoot. He's shooting 47% from three for his playoff career, which is absolutely absurd. So he's got to improve the jumper a little bit because 29% from three on the season just isn't really going to cut it. Outside of that, though, I think everyone trusts Andrew Nembhard to be a good player for the Pacers next year with the increased volume of having the basketball and having to make more decisions. Jarris Walker, to me, is the most interesting piece because we kind of know what Mathurin is because we've seen him a lot. We kind of know we know exactly who Andrew Nembhard is because we've seen him a lot. Jarris Walker, haven't seen him a ton. He's a power forward who might be able to play small forward. I think they're going to give him some run at small forward next year. And I'm really hoping that they just let him go. I'm hoping that they let him play a ton of minutes. And I hope that they let him defend the opposing team's best wing because he's a guy who is supposed to project as a really good, you know, defensive player with the size and the length and the athleticism and all those important things. So I'm hoping that they give him some tougher defensive assignments next year. This is a guy who played in 75 games this year for the Pacers, played about 16 minutes a night on average. Okay, shot 40% from three. He's done that 2 years in a row now. Now, he's not taking a ton of threes per game, so I'd like to see the shot volume go up a little bit. And it should because the Pacers need guys who can score. So hopefully they let him defend. Hopefully they give him more opportunities to shoot the ball within the offense. That should happen just because of how the Pacers run their offense. I hope they let him initiate some of the offense as well. Let him bring the ball up the floor because that's what he did a lot of at Houston. He's a good passer. Like, you can tell, like, he's got good vision. And with that being said, there are moments where the vision looks good and he'll see this guy cutting and then he makes a bad pass. Like that was part of the Jarris Walker experience for different stretches of his rookie year and his second year. So I am just really intrigued to kind of see the balance of trying to win games, but also trying to develop these other guys. And I think we're going to kind of know what their plan is based off of what they do at the center position. Because if they go out and they get a real guy, then it's like, all right, like they're going to look to win games and get back into the playoffs and do all those things. But if they don't want to do that because they're close to having to pay the luxury tax, something they haven't done in 20 years, by the way. They haven't paid the luxury tax in 20 years. And it's just frustrating. It's like pay Myles Turner, take this year to develop the Matherins and the Walkers of the world, get Tyrese Halliburton back in 2 years, and try to make another run at it. Like it's just frustrating. Like there's 3 teams who haven't paid the tax in 20 years. It's the Hornets, it's the Pelicans, and it's the Pacers. And it's frustrating. I would have liked to have seen Myles Turner back, as would have a lot of other people, but I get it. Owning the Pacers is more of a business, I guess. So, or not, I guess it is. And don't mess with the bottom line. It seems to be the motto, but it's fine. Anyway, when we come back here in about 4 minutes, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts is going to join, and we're going to discuss the Colts training camp because it is not that far away. It's coming up here pretty soon. Obviously, we'll talk Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, but we will also discuss some of the other position battles because, believe it or not, there's more going on than just the Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson position battle going into camp. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts joins here in about 4 minutes.
may one day be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, X, or the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. I'm now joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, who does a great job covering the Colts. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Doing better than most Pacers fans, I think, the last couple days here. But, hanging in there.
Yeah, don't worry, though. We're all about to be aboard this Colts boat that might sink. Wouldn't be surprised if it sunk. Wouldn't be surprised if it just, didn't move and went 8-9 again. I don't know. So the last time we talked, I had you on after the Anthony Richardson shoulder injury, and it was pretty doom and gloom. But now that we know that Anthony Richardson is going to be back in time for training camp, he's going to be ready to compete. How are you feeling about the quarterback competition between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson?
Man, I think I feel still the same with it. It's just I need to see it to believe it with him when it comes to just staying healthy. It really is falling into that Juju Brents and Jelani Woods train of thought where it's even if he's healthy right now, I need to see him stay healthy to believe it, and it's tough, man. I really think for me, the back injury late last season is what really kind of broke me a little bit with him because I was of the mindset where it's look, last year was such a tough year for him in terms of dealing with the hip injury, having the benching happen, having his play just not be great. But when he came back from the benching, I thought we saw some good moments of play. The Jets game looked better. I thought the Lions game, despite the stat line, was a better game from him. He finished that Patriots game so well. And I was if he can just finish this season, I don't care if it's perfect, but finish this season better than the way he started, then I can go into the offseason feeling confident. And then he missed the last couple of games with an injury. And then another injury happens in training camp. And it's I just don't know how to feel about this anymore. So, yeah, I mean, it's good that he's going to be out there. It just feels like a ticking time bomb at this point, though, with him, just because of how many injuries there's already been with him. I hope he can stay healthy. I hope he can win this battle. But my confidence level feels so low right now with Anthony Richardson. And I feel like I'm not the only one thinking that way with him.
Oh, you're not. I know I am. I don't think we're the only two either. And for me, the breaking point, I guess we can call it that, was this injury here during training camp. Because, he got hurt during a time where no one can hit anyone. And that's because, as someone who's, torn his labrum in his shoulder, my shoulder's still not the same. And so shoulders are just weird and wonky. And the fact that, you're hurting it during a time where it's not like he got hit and he, fell on it. That would kind of make sense. But you're just throwing casually and your shoulder flares up. That's not a good sign. I pretty firmly believe now that that Daniel Jones is going to be the starter week 1. I think part of that, though, is just because he's older, and I feel like he's going to be a really good practice player where, practice it's not as intense. It's a little more relaxed. Daniel Jones is going to be able to come to the line and kind of have an idea of what the Colts defense is going to do. And I just feel like I trust him more in that environment than I do Richardson. In terms of the actual, who do you think is going to win this quarterback battle?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be Daniel Jones as well. I do think with everything I've heard and kind of seen from Carly Irsay since taking over, I don't think this is going to be as similar to Jim Irsay in terms of, at the end of the day, sentimentality is going to win out. It's going to be about my buddies staying in position. Look, we love Jim. I'm not trying to talk bad about Jim by any means, but he did have a little bit of just being too sentimental about his guys and riding things a little bit too long than what they should have been. Where my vibe I'm getting with Carly is she's all business right now. It's really about getting this thing on the right track and getting success back to Indy. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, and this Colts team to win games this year, or major changes are going to happen. And as much as Anthony Richardson gives them a higher ceiling if he's healthy and if he's, clicking, he does give them the higher ceiling. Sometimes you just need that higher floor. I mean, look, the Colts the last 2 years have been just below a 500 team, with Gardner Minshew taking a majority of the snaps and Joe Flacco taking a chunk of snaps and, Richardson having some really poor play. They've been able to be around 500 despite that, and not with the best defense either on the other side of the field. So they've been able to grind out some wins despite quarterback play not being great. So if they can sell themselves on Daniel Jones not even being a top 20 quarterback, being the 25th best quarterback, that's probably an upgrade over what they've had for most of the last 2 years. And maybe they can sell themselves on being a winning team this year with that. It does sound pretty bleak, but when your back is against the wall, he might offer the best opportunity for them to keep their jobs and keep this thing going for them. So yeah, I do think it will be Daniel Jones. It could have been different if Richardson was healthy through minicamp and was showing great progress. And look, the door is still open for Richardson to come out here in training camp and look like a different guy, but that feels like banking on a miracle at this point.
Yeah.
Jones, I think, is just, you're going to get a bunted single here at best, and that's kind of what you're banking on. And maybe that can be enough to get them the wins they need this year. It does sound so bleak saying it out loud, but I do think that's kind of what they're going for. It's like, look, we upgraded the defense. The skill position on offense is looking really good. The O-line's probably going to be pretty good this year. If we can just get a quarterback that can come in here, distribute the football, not get injured, which is saying a lot with these two guys, I think that, they probably think they can make the playoffs this year, come close to making the playoffs this year, which might be enough to buy them some more time.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about this upcoming Colts season. I'm with you on the Daniel Jones thing. Can you just stay healthy, and can you just get us to 3rd and 5? If we can get to 3rd and 5, then I don't mind our chances. I also think that, look, Shane Steichen went 9-8 and was a drop pass or an overthrow, depending on how you want to look at it, with Gardner Minshew away from winning the AFC South. And Gardner Minshew leaves, and he backs up Aiden O'Connell. So I do think that Shane Steichen has the ability to raise the floor of a guy like Daniel Jones. But we'll see. I'm kind of intrigued to see how all that goes. What are some of the other position battles going on during Colts camp? Because there's more going on than just the Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson battle.
Yeah, I think there's 3 starting battles up for grabs, and they kind of vary on how much up for grabs they are. Like, I think the quarterback battle truly is like, look, whoever is better here is going to get the job. The only other position I think is in the same boat is the kicker competition between the undrafted kicker. I think it's Maddox Trujillo and Spencer Schrader. Whichever one of those guys has a better camp is going to be the starting kicker this next season. So I think the Colts like Schrader a lot. That's probably the guy they think is going to win it, but they really coveted Maddox Trujillo as well. And I think whichever one of those guys is the better guy this offseason is going to be the Colts kicker. I think center is also a battle that it was a little unexpected. The Colts have the veteran Danny Pinter competing with Tanner Bortolini. Obviously, they want Bortolini to win that because Bortolini is the younger player they've invested in. The coaching staff loves Bortolini, but I do think Pinter is going to have a shot here. I think that they've had him for a long time in this organization. They want to give him a shot to win that battle. Ultimately, I think Bortolini wins it, but I wouldn't count out Pinter just because of that better experience. And then on defense, I think this one's a long shot because I do think Jalen Jones wins it, but Jalen Jones and Justin Wally for the outside corner spot. This coaching staff really loves Justin Wally, and I think they're going to try to find some excuse to get him on the field this year. But, Jalen Jones is that veteran guy who had a pretty good season last year. I think he's going to win it, but the way I keep describing it is like, just give this defensive staff an excuse to get Wally on the field, and I think they might do it. So Jones has to be on top of his game this offseason to keep that starting job. I think he will, but I think that those two guys are kind of in like a minor starting position like battle right now. I think Jones is going to win it, but Wally's right there, and Wally's had a pretty good offseason so far.
Okay. I think the thing that I'm most interested in is the offensive line. position battle. You talked about Bortolini or Danny Pinter. Seems like Matt Gonzalez is going to slide over and play right guard.
Yeah.
You made this comment earlier that you feel like the offensive line is going to be pretty good this year. I'm not convinced. I just have all these memories of Anthony Richardson running for his life last year. And part of that is probably on him not making the right reads and not getting the ball out quickly. Why do you have the confidence that this offensive line is going to be good this year?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of not like refute your point, but to add some context, I mean, I think a lot of last year was there were moments where, at right guard, they had Dalton Tucker in there, and Dalton
true.
Tucker was just not ready for the moment for a month of the 7 games he played. Like 4 of them were rough for him. So Dalton Tucker was out there. Matt Gonzalez at right tackle, I just don't think it was a great fit for him, and there were some bad moments there. And then I don't think Bortolini contributed too much of this, but Bortolini being out there, he was still only like a 21-year-old starting center. I think with more time under his belt that he could be more ready for the moment. And then Mark Lewinsky was out there too. And while he started better than Dalton Tucker, by the end of the season, it was rough. So yeah, last year the Colts dealt with a lot of injuries on the O-line, and it definitely hurt the overall product by the late part of the season when those injuries piled up. This year, going into it healthy, having these guys working at their positions, banking on growth from the young players like Bortolini and Gonzalez. I like the Gonzalez move to right guard because I think his size and his power projects pretty well there. I'm not going to sit here and say, though, that like this is going to be a top 5 or top 10 unit just because I have that optimism. Like there is a path for this to be a disaster on the O-line. We're banking on Braden Smith staying healthy, which he hasn't been healthy the last couple of years. Gonzalez is playing a position he hasn't played pretty much since high school. If even then, I have to call his high school coach to check that out. Actually, but we'll get him on the phone next. And then with Bortolini, like there is still some issues with his anchor and with his power. And then even on the other side, like I think we all feel really good about Bernhard Raimann, but when it comes to Quentin Nelson, sometimes those injuries do flare up for him, and he has some bad moments and bad games. And it's like, is that a ticking time bomb to where like it just eventually turns the corner and the injuries are too much for him? Maybe that's just me speculating too much, but there is a way where this O-line does struggle this year. But when I look at it, I think you have your left side of your O-line is fantastic with Raimann and Nelson as of right now. Bortolini, I have a lot of hope and faith in. I think he's a really good young center, and as long as he did the work this offseason to get stronger, I think he's going to be a good player. Gonzalez, I think, projects well at right guard. And then, right tackle, I have my concerns with Braden Smith, but if you can get 12 to 14 good games out of him, I think Jalen Travis can fill in those other couple games and be solid. So I think it's a solid offensive line. I think they're going to be pretty good up front. Just stay healthy, continue growing, and let Tony Sperano do what he's been doing these last couple years, and I think it'll be a fine offensive line this year.
I think the concerns, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, I think the concern around Quentin Nelson, I do think it's a valid thing. Like I think it was the Lions game last year that was pretty rough for him. And he's not young anymore. Like he's not old. Don't get me wrong. He's like 29. I don't know when he turns 30, but that tends to kind of be the backside of players' primes in the NFL. Now, that being said, like I still have all the faith in the world in him and in Raimann on the left side. The right side is definitely the more concerning side. You mentioned the backup's name for Braden Smith. Justin, what was the last name?
Jalen Travis.
Jalen Travis. What are your thoughts on him? Who is he? Because as you said, Braden Smith he's had some issues with staying healthy. Who is Jalen Travis?
Yeah, so Jalen Travis is the guy they took in the 4th round in this draft out of Iowa State. The massive offensive tackle, 6'8", like 340 pounds, just huge dude. Moves extremely well on the field. One of the best testers at the combine. It has a really cool story too, if you guys want to check that out. Like he went to what was it? I think it was Princeton for a little bit. Like he really big into like politics and stuff too. Like he like interned under U.S. senators and all that, like really cool stuff. And then transferred to Iowa State for this past season and was a really effective player. Had some really, really good moments on film. And I think this is going to be their future guy at right tackle from everything I've seen. But at the very least, I think in his rookie season, he can be a player where, like, for me, the standard as a swing offensive tackle, the standard is just don't get beat quickly. Like, I don't care if you get beat in pass protection as a backup offensive tackle, just don't get beat quick. And I think when you factor in his size and his athleticism and just his ability to get in the way, I think if he has to fill in for Braden Smith, he'll be perfectly fine and even better than what Blake Freeland was 2 years ago, or what even Matt Gonsalves was last year, where Gonsalves had some issues with his foot speed getting to his landmarks. I think Travis can get to all those landmarks, get in the way, and make some things happen. And then as he develops as a player, I think he can be a potential starter at right tackle. So I'm pretty high on Jalen Travis. I think his film was really good last year at Iowa State, and I think there's some good long-term potential there. Smart kid, physical kid. And I have a lot of hope in him. I think it's the best I've thought about swing tackle in a while. Once I really studied his film and dove into his game, I think he can be a pretty good player for this Colts team.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I want to flip over to the other side of the ball. I know people are really excited about the additions of Ward and Bynum on the back end of the defense. The secondary should be, it's definitely more talented than what we've seen these past couple of years. Front seven, though, I am interested to see kind of how the defensive line looks. I know that they obviously draft JT Tuimoloau with that second round pick. The hope is that Leatu Latu makes a leap. What are your thoughts on what's going to be the Colts front four this next season?
Yeah, I think the defensive line rotation is probably the thing I'm most curious about, besides the quarterback competition, obviously, going into Colts training camp, because I think anything is up for grabs when it comes to who slots in where, who plays where. Like the starting four is probably locked in with Kwity Paye starting alongside Leatu Latu, and then the two studs on the inside and Grover and Buckner. But after that, I mean, I think every single role is completely up for grabs for anybody on the roster. I mean, Samson Ebukam is coming back from his Achilles injury, but we don't know what that's going to look like. Odds are it's not going to look great, because it typically has never looked great for players of his age coming back from that injury. But you never know. He could be an exception to the rule. There have been exceptions in the past to the rule. So that's kind of what the Colts are banking on. I don't like banking on that, but I digress. I'm not going to go on another rant about that on your show here. Tyquan Lewis had a down season last year, but he's still a productive NFL player that can give them some good snaps and then run defense. You add a player like JT Tuimoloau to the mix, and he can certainly, make some waves here in his first season with the Colts. And then you even have a player like Isaiah Land as well, who I think has shown some good things the last couple of years, and maybe a new coaching staff is what he needs to get on the field. And then we go to defensive tackle, where Tim Smith is competing with Neville Gallimore, is competing with Eric Johnson is back in the mix, a couple undrafted free agents who are athletic, and then Adetomiwa Adebawore, we don't really know where he factors in as a defensive end or as a defensive tackle, or what his snaps are going to be. I said on the podcast recently where I could see him being anywhere from a roster cut down guy to a 40 to 50% snap guy on defense this year. I think the range is just so big for him, because we don't really know what role is going to be available for him. So, yeah, this defensive line rotation, like if you told me any of those guys I just mentioned are going to be primary backups that play a ton or are cut candidates, I mean, aside from JT Tuimoloau, I think he's pretty safe, but I think the rest could be cut candidates. Like, it wouldn't shock me. I think there's so much up in the air for this rotation on the defensive line. And when it comes to Louis Anarumo, he likes to rotate on the D-line. He likes to get really wonky with his pass rush sets, especially on third down. So I think there's going to be a lot up in the air with these guys, and training camp's going to be big when it comes to these depth players on the D-line.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about Colts' upcoming training camp. Yeah, I'm with you. The defensive line, like you said, there's just a lot in the air. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see how all that shakes out. Linebacker, it feels like if Jalen Carlisle is good, then we're going to feel pretty good about the guys playing linebacker. If he struggles, though, we'll kind of see how it goes from there. Last question that I want to ask you, because I don't know, like, it's the summer, so sometimes you ask questions just because they're interesting.
Yeah.
So who benefits the most from going from Anthony Richardson, a starting quarterback, to Daniel Jones? Like, which receiver do you think would have like the biggest increase in production?
Yeah, I think you want to look for the underneath receivers are probably where the increase comes. So your players like Josh Downs, you can even throw Tyler Warren in there. I mean, historically, Daniel Jones had extremely low average depth of target. He keeps his targets pretty close to the line of scrimmage, tries to get that ball out pretty quick. So I think Josh Downs would see an increase in targets. And then again, Tyler Warren, I think the Colts are going to feature him a lot in the tight end screen game and just work him. I will say, just to add on to your question here, the one player that it hurts the most is poor Alec Pierce, man. I just going back to another quarterback who just doesn't throw the ball down the field nearly as much. I'm not going to say it's as bad as Gardner Minshew, but it's pretty close, I think. And Alec Pierce coming off such a career year with two quarterbacks who were more just like, F it, I'm throwing the deep ball like every 5 play,
Yeah.
and that's what led to Alec Pierce having such a great season. I certainly think if Daniel Jones is the starter, it hurts him more than anybody else. But I think Josh Downs, we could see him hitting 100 catches this season if Daniel Jones is the full-time starter all year. I think Wan'Dale Robinson got pretty close a couple times with Daniel Jones. And who was their slot guy before that? Was it Sterling Shepard, I think,
Yes,
was there
Sterling
as well
Shepard.
before that?
Loved him.
Yeah. Like those guys would get a ton of catches with Daniel Jones because Jones just loved to get that ball out quick. I think we could see Downs hitting 100 catches. Now, I don't know if he goes over 1,000 yards because that ball's going to come out quick with Daniel Jones, but I could see it like 100 catches and like a low 1,000-yard season if Jones is the starting quarterback for Josh Downs.
I thought it would be Michael Pittman Jr., just because like we did see Anthony Richardson hit some short routes. I always thought that the thing that Anthony Richardson struggled to do the most was kind of like that intermediate middle area of the field. And that kind of seems to be where they like to run Michael Pittman Jr. on like those deep overs and those type of routes. I thought it'd be him, but I do think that Josh Downs racking up all those receptions like that makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, I think Pittman will get more targets, or I guess not more targets, more quality targets from Daniel Jones. It's just, again, you go from the hyper-aggressive Anthony Richardson to a more on the conservative side in Daniel Jones. I don't know how many of those throws over the middle of the field where, we're punching the wall because Richardson's missing a Pittman Jr. on these tough throws. I think when you have a guy like a Daniel Jones, or again, you kind of lump him in with a Gardner Minshew type quarterback in there, those throws just aren't really being attempted, I think is the big thing. So we'll see if he can up the aggressiveness. But yeah, I think Pittman will get more quality passes his way for sure if Jones is out there, just because, I mean, pretty much any NFL quarterback would probably have more quality passes than what we saw from Richardson last year.
Probably. Last thing for real here. I know last year there was a lot of commentary and complaining about the completion percentage for Richardson, and rightfully so. How long do you think, if Daniel Jones is the starter, how long do you think it takes for people to start complaining about the fact that he doesn't like to throw the ball more than like 4 yards down the field?
What's funny is it's always louder when like the completion percentage is low than it is when it's like something like that. Because I remember with like Gardner Minshew, there really wasn't that many complaints about the deep. It was more just people like in the losses, people got upset about it. But for the most part, like people didn't really care as long as the optics of the numbers look good. It kind of is like that Carson Wentz season as well, where Carson Wentz's season, like the numbers looked good, but we all know the play wasn't good enough on the field when we were watching. So I think people just kind of like the aesthetic of the numbers is really what it is. At the end of the day, I just want to get points on the board. And I've never really like if Richardson finished the season with a 55% completion percentage, but had like a 9.0 yards per attempt. I know that's insane to talk about. It's like an MVP caliber yards per attempt, but like and was productive, then who cares about completion percentage? At that point, as long as you're productive. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I think completion percentage is good, but if your ADOT's like 5, like league bottom of the league, and you're just not pushing the ball down the field, I don't care if you're completing 67% of your passes. Like I need points. I need points on the board. Like that's the biggest thing there. So it's always a balancing act. Like you want to see a healthy yards per attempt, a healthy ADOT,
and healthy completion percentage to get your offense moving. And unfortunately, I think with the Colts, they're going to have to pick one side or the other. Low completion percentage, but high depth of target, or high completion percentage with low depth of target. That's kind of where we're at right now with these quarterbacks.
Yeah, not a great place to be either way. Zach, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. You're always super buttoned up on all things Colts. Your ability to pronounce the names of all these players is really incredible. Like,
dude, you get me after practicing. See, on the podcast is where they get my gaps. And the JP Tuimoloau took me multiple times of trying to get that. Adetomiwa Adebawore.
That's the one that got me today. I was like, wow, that was precise. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, that was with commenters yelling at me for like a month on the podcast. So you get the refined version of me. The podcast, they get the daily version of me where it's like, oh my gosh, can this guy even talk? Like, that's the problem.
Yeah, you guys are going Monday, Wednesday, Friday now, right? For the podcast?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday until the week of July 14th, and we're back to 5 a week. And we're going to be hearing me just gushing about, the 90th player on the roster, because they got to find something to talk about.
It's like, geez, man, Solomon DeShields had a really good day today at practice.
Yeah. You guys know me. I'll be crazy about Solomon DeShields, Trey Washington. I'll even throw out one of these, like, Blaine Taylor or whatever at wide receiver. Like, I'll be going crazy about those guys.
It's okay. I'm going to find some way to be excited about Anthony Gould because I love the speed. Zach, thanks for your time, man.
Of course, man. Thank you.
So that is Zach Hicks. You can check him out on X at Zack Hicks 2. Check out Locked On Colts, where he and Jake Arthur do a really good job talking all things Colts. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, the Fever win the Commissioner's Cups. My thoughts when we come back.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe watching on X__Jonathan Smith to watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app. Big thanks to Zach Hicks for joining the show and talking a little bit of Colts with me, getting things ready for training camp, which is starting up here pretty soon. Can't wait for that. Also can't wait for this weekend. So this is my last show of the week because tomorrow and Friday are company holidays, so I'm not going to be here. And because of that, Zack Gray is going to join the show coming up at 11:40. But my wife and I are going to Chicago. I haven't been to Chicago since I was 12. My wife hasn't been in a long time either. She's never been to Wrigley. So we're going to go to the great Wrigley Field on Sunday. Can't wait. That's going to be a blast. But, we have to fill our Saturday with things to do. And we have to fill our Friday night with things to do. So here's currently the very limited plan that we have. We're going to go to Sluggers because, you got to do that. We're going to the planetarium because my wife wants to do that. We're going to the Nutella Cafe because my wife wants to do that. Outside of that, we have no plans. We have time to fill. We need things to do. So I will take any and all Chicago activity suggestions. Okay, tweet them at me, __ Jonathan Smith. Head over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, subscribe, watch the live stream, hop in the chat, and give me suggestions. I need all of them. I need things to do while I'm in Chicago, okay? Because, and like I said, I'm open to any and all suggestions, so please send them my way. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Anyway, when we come back, top of the hour, went a little long there with Zach Hicks, so we got to hit another break here. I'm kind of annoyed with all this Caitlin Clark stuff and the way that something has been advertised. Caitlin Clark was not voted the 9th best guard in the WNBA. She was 9th in all-star voting via players. That is not the same thing. And I'm going to tell you why and how much it's annoyed me when we come back here in about 4.5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app. And, all right, I've hit my tipping point. I like Caitlin Clark. I like the way she plays basketball. I think she's a really good player. But I don't even want to call it a fan base. Like that is not the right word. The mob. The Caitlin Clark mob that just defend her at every turn and think that everything that she does is great. I can't with you anymore. Caitlin Clark was voted. The way that this has been covered is just really, I think, what upsets me more than anything else. So Caitlin Clark was ninth in all-star voting amongst the players. But when you read all the headlines say Caitlin Clark voted the 9th best guard in the WNBA. And that's just not true. I'm willing to bet that if you gave out a survey and the WNBA players had to vote on the best players in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark would finish higher than 9th. Caitlin Clark was not voted the 9th best guard in the WNBA. She was 9th in all-star voting amongst players. It's not the same thing. Because when you talk about best player, you take everything into account. You look at last year. You look at age. You look at what pick in the draft they were. You look at what they did in college. You look at multiple things. When you do all-star voting, what do you look at? This season. That's all that you look at. And Caitlin Clark shouldn't have gotten as many votes as other players for the All-Star game this year because she's only played 9 games. She's missed 8 games this year. That should matter for who gets voted as an All-Star and who doesn't. If I play 9 games and you play 16, you should get more votes than me if you're a very good contributing player. She's missed half of the Fever games this year. She shouldn't get as many votes as the other women who have played in 15 games or 14 games or whatever it is. The other thing is, when Caitlin Clark has played this year, she's been bad. She hasn't been good. She's shooting 29.5% from 3. That's awful. That is not good. Oh, but Jonathan, she makes 2 of those 30-footers. Yeah, great. Congratulations. You shot 2 of 8 from 3. And the 2 you made the 2 you made were both from 30+ feet. Guess what? There were 3 points one way or the other. Okay? She's not shooting the ball well. Her total field goal percentage is only 39%. That's not good. That is not all-star level play. She's turning the basketball over 6 times a night. That's not all-star level play. So she's missed games, she's not making shots, and she's turning the ball over. That doesn't sound like an all-star to me. I'm sorry. But based on how she has played this year and how little she has played this year, she should be voted 9th. Any other player, if we just took her numbers and we put them up and we, darkened out her face and we didn't tell you who she was, you'd be like, oh, she's not having a very good year. That would be your reaction. But because it's Caitlin Clark, and because the All-Star game is in Indianapolis this year, and because she's the face of the league, we have to be like, oh, no, Caitlin, no. Who cares that you're not playing very well? We're going to give you the All-Star bid anyway. Congratulations. Seriously, come on now. She hasn't played well this year. That's why she was voted 9th amongst players in all-star voting. It's not complicated, okay? And I would appreciate it if it would be covered like what it is, an all-star voting, not a voting on who the best players in the WNBA are. That is not at all what it is. Jeez Louise. This Caitlin Clark stuff, man, just super annoying. Incredibly annoying. But she will be an all-star this year. She'll be an all-star starter because she's Caitlin Clark and because people love her and because she's really popular and all those other things. All right. But anyway, the Fever didn't need her last night. Didn't need her. They played the Minnesota Lynx, one of the better teams in the WNBA, without their savior, Caitlin Clark. And they won 74-59. They won the WNBA Commissioner's Cup. They beat the 14-2 Minnesota Lynx to get it done. The Fever are now 9-8, over 500 on the year, all that good stuff. Congratulations to them. Caitlin Clark didn't play. That probably helped them. They didn't turn the ball over a whole bunch, or they won the turnover battle last night. I'm willing to bet in part because Caitlin Clark didn't play. They also shot like 42% from three, and that's probably also in part because they didn't have Caitlin Clark out there chucking up 30-footers just to miss them. I get it. You know, like making those 30-foot threes are really cool, but when you miss 7 of them, who cares? So they're probably better last night because she didn't play. They also defended a lot better. Held the Lynx to only 59 points. The defense was spectacular last night from the Indiana Fever. Holding the team to 59 points in a 40-minute game, pretty impressive. Holding a team to only 35% shooting from the field, pretty impressive. And look, let's just be honest. Caitlin Clark is not a very good defender. So the fact that she wasn't out there to miss threes, turn the ball over, and give up easy buckets probably helped the Fever last night. They probably don't hold the Minnesota Lynx to 35% shooting from the field if Caitlin Clark is out there playing. They probably don't. Okay? And look, when your best player's not out there, when your best offensive player isn't out there, then like you have to find a way to get stops because that just seems to be the easiest path to victory. And the Fever found a way to get stops last night. They got in stance. They were physical on the defensive end of the floor. You know, they rebounded the ball really well. They finished possessions at a pretty high rate. Like they had as many defensive rebounds as the Minnesota Lynx did total rebounds. So their ability to close possessions on the glass was really big and really important. They held one of the best players in the league, Nafisa Collier, you know, the second leading vote getter alongside Caitlin Clark for the All-Star game. Like, she's one of the best women's basketball players in the world. And the Fever just bottled her up and didn't allow her to get going. She scored 12 points on 6 of 18 shooting, didn't take a free throw. No genius here. Or I'm not a genius, but when you score less points than shots attempted, it's not good. She also turned the basketball over 5 times. The defense on Nafisa Collier last night was very, very impressive. Okay? Like she needs to be the Lynx leading scorer for them to have a chance to win. She wasn't last night, and it ended up being some girl named Alana Smith, who hit 3 of the Lynx 4 threes. By the way, only 4 of 16 from 3 last night from the Minnesota Lynx. Really tough to win games when you shoot the ball that poorly. And they shot the ball that poorly because the Fever played good defense. Really impressive night last night from them on the defensive end of the floor. The offense was good too. It was even production across the board. Kind of reminded you of the Indiana Pacers a little bit. Natasha Howard scored 16 points. Aaliyah Boston had 12. Kelsey Mitchell had 12. Ari McDonald had 12. Sophie Cunningham off the bench had a really good game, 13 points. She was plus 18 in 26 minutes. Okay, she also had 7 rebounds, 13 points and 7 rebounds off the bench, going 3 of 5 from 3. Sign me up for that every night, Sophie. Please. Okay, now she had some comments after, I guess before the game about, the expansion of the WNBA and how no one wants to live in Detroit or whatever, and how they should have, expanded in Miami or some other place. I don't know. I don't really care about all that, but I do care that she scored the basketball and played good defense and rebounded. Do that, please. I also thought that the Indiana Fever moved the ball better, like they'd had some games where like the ball would just stick too much without Caitlin Clark on the floor. And while I did rip Clark for the turnovers earlier, basically 6 a game, she's also averaging 9 assists per game. So like when you have her on the floor, like you get more easy baskets and all those things. But the Fever moved the ball a lot better with her out last night. 20 assists on 27 made field goals is like, that's a good place to be. And like Aaliyah Boston led the charge in that area. She was really good last night. Really good. And like if you go to her box score and like, oh, it's like Jonathan, she was only 5 of 15 from the floor. Like you call that really good. It's not just about that. The best players in any sport, really, football, basketball, baseball, whatever, they have the ability to impact the game in multiple ways. And we saw Aaliyah Boston do that last night. I get it. Only 5 of 15 from the floor, but she had 11 rebounds, 5 of them offensive, getting extra possessions for her team. Okay, she had 11 rebounds. Pretty impressive. Okay, like 11 total rebounds. She had 6 assists. She led the Fever in assists last night. Moving the basketball, finding open cutters, kicking out for 3. She had a couple steals and a block as well. Only turned the basketball over one time. Okay, a 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio is really impressive. So Aaliyah Boston finding ways to impact the game with more than just her scoring is a really good thing. Okay, now, in addition to that, the glass, man. The Fever dominated the glass last night, out-rebounded the Lynx by 10, 40 rebounds to their 30. 10 of those, they had 10 offensive rebounds. Like, that's a really impressive number. All right, and when you're able to out-possession your opponent, like, you're probably going to win. Okay, the Fever had 10 more rebounds than the Lynx did, and they forced 2 more turnovers than the Lynx did. That's important, right? And then you pair that with the fact that you make twice as many threes as the Lynx. You're not losing that game. You're not losing that game, really, no matter what happens. So, Aaliyah Boston getting it done for the Indiana Fever last night. She is a former number 1 overall pick who can really play. So, yeah, good game by her last night. Wasn't like some crazy game from Kelsey Mitchell, but look, she plus 10, 12 points, 3 assists. Solid night from Kelsey Mitchell. And that's really what you got from the Fever last night. Just a bunch of players giving you solid nights. With that being said, Sophie Cunningham did have a really good night off the bench, 13 points and 7 boards on 4 of 6 shooting. And then Ari McDonald, 5 of 6 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, 12 points. Like a really efficient scoring night from her as well. So, and then of course, Lexi Hull, 2 of 3 from 3 on the night. So really good, just solid performance. A lot of contributions from a lot of different players from the Fever last night led to that win. And now, the Fever won something. You won the Commissioner's Cup. Congratulations. Now, get ready to play because you're going to play tomorrow night at home against the Las Vegas Aces. Another team with a really good player in Asia Wilson. Hopefully, Caitlin Clark is back for that game because even though she bothers me and I the coverage around her really upsets me or gets on my nerves, she is their best player. She is one of the best women's basketball players in the world, and they're better when she's on the floor. But really impressive win last night from the Fever, beating a really good Minnesota Lynx team without Caitlin Clark. So, yeah, let's go. The Pacers, I saw a comment over in the YouTube chat a while back, and I want to go back and read it, and I'm going to address it whenever we come back from break. It was something about the Pacers roster and how it's not chump change. There it is. There it is. Jonathan Dodrill, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that. He commented, everyone's saying the Pacers will be bad this year. The rest of the roster is not chump change. Will they be a top 3 seed? No, but 5 through 8 is definitely possible. I'm going to talk about that because, Jonathan, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the show. But I think you're wrong. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
fits in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith to watch the show there. You can also listen via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Now, the Pacers next year, it's not looking great. I don't think that they're going to be very good. Like, miss the playoffs, but we're talking about lottery balls and hoping that they bounce the Pacers away. That's kind of what I am expecting for this next season, because there is no more Tyrese Halliburton for the next season. There is no Myles Turner. You're looking at a lot of Tony Bradley minutes at center as of right now. So the Pacers are going to have to make a move for me to think that they're not going to be bad. And, Jonathan Dodrell, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. He opted in the YouTube chat earlier, and he said this: everyone's saying the Pacers will be bad this year. The rest of this roster is not chump change. Will they be top three? Will they be top three? No, but 5 through 8, possibly. Yeah, that's not very good. Like, you're coming off of a season where you made the NBA Finals, and you're definitely not going to get back there. Sure, you might make the playoffs, but if you do, you're probably going to lose in the first round. And look, the Pacers have some good players. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Andrew Nembhard, really good player. Benedict Mathurin, I know people are excited about how his volume is going to go up this next season. Okay, Pascal Siakam he's a fringe all-star year after year after year, and like, that's a really good player. Like, he's hands down going to be your best player this next season. But that being said, like, you just don't have enough shot creators. You don't. Like, you have to have guys who can go get a shot for themselves and a shot for other people. Like, part of why Aaron Nesmith is as good as he is on the offensive end of the floor is because you've got Tyrese Halliburton moving the ball and creating shots for other players. Like, part of why, Pascal Siakam is as good as he is because of Tyrese Halliburton's ability to get him the ball in the spots where he needs to be. A large part of why Obi Toppin is so good off the bench is because he's able to run the floor with Tyrese Halliburton handling it, and his ability to move the ball and to get the ball to the right guy in the right spot. Okay, same goes for guys like Ben Shepherd, right? When you go through the list of all these Pacer players, a lot of them, they have to have shots created for them. And there's just not going to be enough of that on this Pacers roster this next season. And you got significantly worse at center. Like, I get it. We don't love Myles Turner, but you know how hard it is to find like a good center in the NBA? Like, do you know how, like, there's not that many centers that teams are like, yeah, we really like our center. Like, obviously the Sixers like Joel Embiid whenever he's healthy. Obviously the Nuggets love Jokic. Anthony Davis wants to play power forward, but let's be honest, he's really a center. Obviously the Spurs like having Wemby. But like Domantas Sabonis, people like, but like he doesn't transfer to winning. The Heat like Bam Adebayo, but he doesn't transfer to winning. Minnesota likes Rudy Gobert, but Rudy Gobert gets played off the floor all the time in playoff series. Alperen Sengun's a nice player, but if he's your best player, you don't get out of the first round. That's what happened this last year. Okay, I do like Chet Holmgren. Kristaps Porzingis is a good player. He translates to winning, but he can't stay healthy. Myles Turner is somewhere around like the 11th or 12th best center in the league. And I say that, and like that is, I would take that to the bank. And now you're going to a guy in Isaiah Jackson who should be a backup, but It'll be fine. I just, the summers are just so much more fun when the Pacers are good. Like these last 2 seasons of making these runs to the Eastern Conference Finals and then the NBA Finals, they've just been a lot of fun. And I get it. Myles Turner was really bad in the NBA Finals. Played his worst basketball of the year on the offensive end of the floor. With that being said, I thought he did a pretty decent job defending Chet Holmgren, but he didn't make shots when he needed to. And, if he does, then maybe the Pacers are NBA champions, but he picked the worst time to play his worst basketball of the season. And since Tyrese Halliburton isn't going to play next year, the ownership is using this as an excuse to avoid having to pay the tax. And it's really annoying. So now the Pacers are probably going to bring in some center that, has some upside, which is good because we love upside here in Indy. But, it's going to be like a DeAndre Ayton who makes sense. We know that the Pacers like his talents. They offered him a big offer sheet a couple years ago that the Suns matched, thankfully. And so he had to go and play for them instead of coming to Indianapolis to play. And I saw someone this morning because there's all these different conflicting reports on how much Myles Turner was offered by the Pacers. Jake Fisher reported that they offered him, 3 years, $60 million. I saw another report this morning that they offered him about $3 million a year less than the Milwaukee Bucks, and so on and so forth. And, Alex Golden said that, they offered him high 20s, but look, whatever it was, they didn't offer him as much as Milwaukee. Because I think that if they'd offered him the same or more, then he would have stayed. And I saw someone say, the Pacers only offered him $3 million a year less, which I don't know if that's true or not. And he left over $3 million a year, which first and foremost, you would. Secondly, he absolutely should have. He absolutely should have. Myles Turner has been involved in trade rumors what seemed like every year of his career, except for this year. I understand that the Lakers wanted Myles Turner, but the Pacers weren't going to give Myles Turner up this year. 3 years ago, the Pacers offered DeAndre Ayton a whole bunch of money to come play here and to play probably over Myles Turner because you don't give a guy that much money if they're going to come in and be your backup. So Myles Turner absolutely should have left because, yes, even though he had, a decent run here in Indy, it felt like the Pacers were trying to get rid of him at every single turn. So I do not blame him for leaving in the slightest. More money to go to an organization that legitimately wants him. Obviously, the Pacers wanted him, but once again, they felt like they tried to get rid of that dude at every single turn. So now we're looking at this next Indiana Pacers season, which is going to be, about these young guys quite a bit. We're going to see a lot of Jarris Walker. We're going to see a lot of Benedict Mathurin. We're going to see a lot of Andrew Nembhard playing point guard. The Pacers will be fine. They're not going to be the worst team in the NBA. They're not going to be that bad. They might make the play-in. That's cool, I guess. Be a 9 seed. Congratulations. Because I do like the Eastern Conference. I think the Hawks got a lot better. You don't want to hear me talk about all that, though. You want to hear me talk about Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker and Andrew Nembhard and the rest of these guys. And, the Pacers could be better in 2 years because all these guys are going to get to play more. They might be better in 2 years because they have a lottery pick to add, another center who can really play. It's still just the fact that we're going to have to deal with Tony Bradley and Isaiah Jackson's center minutes next year is going to be, we'll see how that goes. But Mathurin, I think, is the player that that everyone is mostly excited about. He's going to start. He's going to score a lot of points. Don't let that fool you. Okay, he's just going to have the ball more. So, if you want to figure out whether or not Benedict Mathurin's really making a leap or not, you have to look at the shooting. How efficient is he? Is he, a high 40, like a 48, 49% shooter from the field? And can he get that 3-point percentage up? It dropped. He shot like 33% from three his rookie year, 37% in his sophomore year, and then like 34% last year. Like, can he get back up to 37%? Andrew Nembhard, he's going to play a lot of point guard this next year. He has to become a more consistent shooter. 29% from three in the regular season. That's not going to cut it. It's not. Like, he's got to be better. Like, he's got to come back a better player because he's going to have the ball more and he's going to have to make more decisions and he's probably going to have more opportunities to try to score and all those things. So he's got to get better. He's got to come back a more consistent shooter. So that's the thing with Nembhard, because I do think that we trust Nembhard to do everything else. Like, he played a lot of, like he was on the ball a lot in the NBA Finals. So they obviously trust him as a decision maker and all those things. We know how good he is on the defensive end of the floor, but he's got to become a more consistent shooter in the regular season for the Pacers to have a chance to like really make the playoffs. But Jarris Walker is the guy that I'm really paying attention to. To me, he is the most interesting piece of this puzzle, just because there's a lot that we don't really know about him. We've seen him the least of these three guys that I think are going to get a pretty significant bump in terms of playing time and just having the ball more. And, he's a power forward who seems like he might be able to play some small forward because he's a really good athlete. And I just kind of hope that they just let him go. Okay, like they should let him defend the other team's best wing every single night. Like, just throw him in the fire. Like, this is year 3. Let's figure out if Jarris Walker is going to live up to being the number 8 overall pick or not. They should let him play. They should have him play in the summer league again this year. Let him play on the ball. Let him continue to work on the playmaking and the passing. Let him continue to work on scoring off the bounce, because I think he's going to have some opportunities to do that this next season. Like, let him continue to work on his game. Figure out if he can really play or not. And the numbers are good. He played in over 70 games this year, played about 15 minutes a night, shot 40% from three again. Now, the attempts aren't crazy. Like, he shot 40% from three on 2.5 attempts a night. Like, that's okay. Like, that's not great. He shot, 58% from the field on twos. So, like, he's got some stuff to him. He just needs a little bit more time. Throw him to the fire next year. Let him initiate some offense. Let him defend the other team's best wing. And, let's figure out if this guy can really play or not. Because if he can, then that's a guy 2 years from now who can maybe help you go on another deep playoff run. He contributed some in the playoffs this year. Played a fairly decent amount in that Bucks series, played a little bit in that New York Knicks series, then obviously, sprains his ankle and doesn't get to play at all in the finals. Would he have played? I don't know. Probably not. But you can tell that the Pacers at least like him a little bit. Coach Carlisle at least trusts him a little bit, because if he didn't, he wouldn't have played at all in the playoffs. So we'll see how he looks this year. He is the guy that I am most intrigued by. Obviously, Cam Jones is going to get to play some. And, I do think that they're going to make some sort of move at center. They may not, but we'll see. We'll see. It is my last show of the week. Zack Gray always has to come on every week because he's the man and he's got bets. And so he's set to join the show coming up here in about 5 minutes or so. Always great to have him on. I'm sure we'll talk about the draft a little bit. I'm sure we'll talk about free agency. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about Myles Turner, and it'll all be good. So Zack Gray, professional sports gambler, he's going to join the show when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Last show of the week for me. So, we had to get our guy, Zack Gray, on to talk a little baseball, talk a little NBA free agency stuff as well. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Jay Smith, what's up, man? It's weird. It's a Wednesday. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
It's great. That's how I feel. It is weird, though. Like, I woke up today and I was like, today's my Friday. Like, what is going on? So it is a little bit weird, but do you have any plans for the 4th of July?
Yeah, I'm actually going out to Illinois. My fiance is having her bridal shower.
Let's go.
So I will be one of the only men at said bridal shower. So it'll be really fun and I'll enjoy it.
Good. That's the right thing to say. I didn't have to go to my wife's bridal shower, thankfully. Love my wife. She has great friends, but yeah, not for me. But hey, what part of Illinois?
Southeast Illinois, in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, even better. Even better. I'll be out there too. I'll be in Chicago though. Sounds just like a little bit different. But I am excited for it. Amelia has never been to Wrigley Field. And so I was like, we have to change that immediately,
Yeah, it's going to be, baseball games are getting hotter as I get older. I don't remember baseball games being as hot as they've been lately, but maybe that's just me getting older and grumpier. But my knee, I don't like sunburn generally, but I really hate sunburn on my knees. And whenever I go to a baseball game, my knees get absolutely tore up.
Sunburn on the knees. That's a new one. Oh man.
You're not familiar?
No, I don't burn very often.
You're telling me that you don't, when you sit down and you're wearing a pair of shorts, that the top of your knees don't get burnt. Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you, man. That has never happened to me. I will say,
I want someone to respond to Jay Smith, or several of you listeners to respond to Jay Smith and tell him he's crazy for not experiencing this.
it sounds like I'm lucky. It sounds terrible.
I can't, that's like 1 in a million, I feel like.
I will say, joined by Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine on X. He is a professional sports gambler. If you go check out the link in his bio, it'll take you to his Patreon where he sells tools to help you make better bets. I will say, the worst sunburn I've ever had, I went to the beach. Actually, that's not true. So the 2 worst sunburns I've ever had, I got sun poisoning one time. I had it was terrible. Like, we had to leave our vacation early. I was burned so bad.
Wow.
Dude, I had these big blisters and they would pop, and it was disgusting. It was terrible. The other time,
that's good.
Have you ever had the tops of your feet get sunburned?
I feel like I have. It's not something that sticks out in my memory though.
Oh man, it happened to me when I was in high school. Cause you go to the beach and my feet are very white. And because I wear socks everywhere, and I didn't put sunscreen on the tops of my feet, and they got burned. So you just can't wear shoes. You have to go everywhere barefoot. It's terrible.
So how tops of your feet, but not your knees? When you're a different type of cat, Jake.
Hey, man.
I guess that's just,
I'm built different. I don't know what it is, man. Speaking of being built different, people here are upset that Myles Turner left. I don't blame him in the slightest. What was your reaction when that news broke yesterday?
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things where it was bound to happen post Halliburton injury. Yeah. I just don't know if you can justify bringing him back when basically next year's a wash. You don't know what your roster is going to look like in 2 years. You kind of saw the limitations of what he is. And, when you're playing a finals caliber team, it sucks. He was Mr. Pacer there for a while, longest tenured Pacer on the roster that went to the finals and the Eastern Conference Finals in back-to-back years. It sucks, but I do think from a roster construction standpoint, from a situation where you are now with Halliburton being out next season, unfortunately, I think it makes sense.
It does. And the thing that's really bothered me is, it's not fair because like social media isn't real. And I'm sure that most people don't feel this way. But there are like some Pacer fans that are like offended that he didn't take a pay cut to stay. And my thing is, they offered DeAndre Ayton a contract 2 years ago that thankfully the Suns matched. He's been in all these different trade rumors, like really ever since he was drafted. I don't blame him for leaving at all,
Right. It was time, and I think it's a natural time for him to move on and go somewhere else. He did a great job for the Pacers, was a leader and a veteran on that team. Like, I don't think this is a scenario where either side can, I think both sides can look back on it and say, hey, good run here, but this is like the perfect time for this split to happen.
Totally agree. Joined by Zack Gray at ZG The Grapevine. He is a professional sports gambler. If you check out the link in his bio on X, once again, that is at ZG The Grapevine. It'll take you to his Patreon where he sells tools to help you make better bets. And what's your percentage this year for the baseball season so far?
I believe we are 144 and 120 plus 26 units. We had a big night last night. We were 4-1 plus 3.51 units. So it just keeps growing slowly but surely. We'll take a step back and have a couple rough days, or maybe it's been a rough week, but we're constantly building and growing. So we've been on a steady incline since opening day.
So I know that when people bet baseball, you look a lot at the pitching and like who's available that night and all those things. But is there a team that Vegas has undervalued right now?
I mean, it's the Reds, if we're being honest.
I hope that we'd be honest.
Well, I don't want to sound like a homer, but
that's
the
fair.
Reds are, and it's starting to, I think the Vegas lines are starting to catch up with the fact that the Reds are a fringy playoff team. But for a while there, they had incredible value. They were, heavy dogs some nights. And, Andrew Abbott is a guy that, could be in the Cy Young picture towards the end of the season here. Still has a sub-2 ERA into July. So they have a lot of things going well for them that is just kind of under the radar right now. I think they're one of the teams I like to take, and the model shows, good signs there. I also think that the Angels are another one in certain situations. They're 500. They're a 500 club right now, and I don't think you would, if you just asked a casual fan what the Angels' record was, I don't know if they're saying 42-42, looking at a playoff spot right now. 1.5 games out of a wild card spot, so they've been another.
What's really bizarre to me, or one of these things is bizarre, the other's not. There's two divisions in Major League Baseball where 4 of the 5 teams have a winning record. One of them makes a lot of sense. The NL West being the one. By the way, the Rockies, don't let them get hot. They're 2-8 in their last 10. Do you know who the other division is?
The other division that is over 500. That's got 4 teams over 500.
Yes.
That's the NL Central.
It is, which is surprising to me. I feel like the NL Central just kind of finds a way to do this every year, where at least like 3 of the teams are good.
Well,
I don't know about
three
good.
Three of the teams may be fighting for a division, but this is the first time in a while that I can look at the NL Central and think, yeah, I think they would be competitive in any division this season.
They would be. The Cubs have really surprised me. I didn't expect them to be this good.
Well, I feel like the Cubs have I feel like they should have pulled away a little more. I think they're in a weird spot now where teams are starting to find themselves. I don't think the Cubs created enough of separation. I mean, the Reds are only 6 games back in the division and they're 4th. That means that the Cardinals and Brewers are right on their tail. So I wouldn't be 100% happy with the Cubs at this point. I think that there was some room for separation there. Even if it's they have 53 wins instead of 50, there are some games that you look back on and think, man, if we could have 2 or 3 more games here, space going into July, I'd feel a lot better. And you know this, that's a big deal. 2 or 3 games worth of lead is a humongous deal.
Oh, yeah. They got a big series coming up this weekend against the Cardinals. A sweep there would be lovely. Probably won't get it, but the NL Central is like, it is back to having like legitimately good baseball, which is really nice because I think that what do you think is the most popular division in baseball? Like the one that casual fans pay attention to the most?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd say probably the AL East or the NL East at this point, just because of the markets that they're in. That both you obviously have the Bostons and the New Yorks in the American League East, and then you have Philly, New York, and Atlanta in the National League East as well.
Yeah, that's probably right. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler at ZG the Grapevine on X. If you check out the link in his bio, it'll take you to his Patreon where he sells tools to help you make better bets. This is if we had to rank front offices across all sports, would Tampa Bay, the Rays, would they be number one with their ability to just be good every year without being able to really retain their best players?
They would be up there. I do think that they get a little bit of the Billy Bean treatment where yeah, they do well with what they have, but they could have more, and there are constraints that they're putting on themselves to make it look harder than it could be or than it should be. So that's the only knock I have on teams like the Rays.
That's totally fair.
They're putting handcuffs on themselves a little bit. You know what I mean? And It's like, oh, look what we're doing with these small resources. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're a small market team, but you're also putting more small market restrictions on you than you need to.
That's totally fair. Who's been, because I'll just be honest, you paid more attention to the baseball season than I have this year. Part of that being because of the Pacers run. Who's been the most surprising team for you this year in like they've either exceeded your expectations or they've fallen short?
Well, I think the Orioles for a fallen short candidate are everyone's trendy pick, right?
Yes, without a
But
doubt.
if I had to, I'll stay in the division. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays are a game back in the AL East. I don't think if you asked anyone before the season, would you say that the Blue Jays are right there with the Yankees in the AL East heading into July? 47-38, 7-3 in their last 10, and they're right on the heels. That division is always competitive, it feels like, but it's usually a Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, Orioles thing lately. But with the Blue Jays being up there now, I think they're super shocking. I think the Tigers being the best team in baseball, while I thought they would be good and probably win their division, them being the best team in baseball at certain points this season is surprising. And then, I'm going to have to throw the Reds in there too, because I didn't expect them to be this good either.
I didn't either. What has happened? Because you mentioned that they've kind of found it seems like they've kind of pieced things together here as of late. What's changed for them?
Their starting pitching is top of the line. Honestly, they have an incredible rotation. Their worst pitcher right now is Nick Martinez, and he's paid the most on the team, and just almost threw a no-hitter on Friday night. So like their starting pitching has been incredible, and then you have Elly De La Cruz kind of still ascending into superstardom. Probably the best shortstop in the National League so far this season, just based on the numbers. I mean, you could argue Lindor, you could argue Trey Turner, but if you just look at the raw numbers and the raw impact, it might be Elly. But yeah, I think it's the top end talent from the guys like Elly De La Cruz and Hunter Green, and like I said, sneaky guys like Andrew Abbott, who has a sub-2 ERA in July. Like there's a lot of things that kind of went right, and this was kind of the plan that they had. And then you see TJ Friedel in center field putting in his best season of his career. Stuff like that. It's how baseball is. Guys can just kind of pop off for a year and it all comes together. But when you look at a team like the Reds or even the Tigers, it's like these young core guys that you brought up have all kind of meshed, and now you're kind of seeing what the vision was when they were losing 100 games or whatever.
No doubt. Last thing here. Has Juan Soto played up to his contract value?
I don't know what you mean by that. What does that even mean?
Like, he's getting paid a whole bunch of money. Is an OPS of 900 and 20 home runs, which leads the Mets. Is that like worthy of all the money he got paid in the offseason? Or is it one of those things where it's like, let's wait till the playoffs because he definitely got paid for how well he's performed in October, whenever he's been there?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of signing a guy like that and bringing him in is to win World Series and championships. So I don't think the first 4 months of his million-year contract, we can kind of put a stamp on it. But, I mean, a 900 OPS and 20 home runs is a good start. I don't think that's undervaluing his contract at all. I mean, he's the type of guy that's going to get on base and lead the league in on base percentage and OPS, and he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. To put some type of, that's what I don't get about this, like to put some type of numerical statistical value on his contract already, like, oh, he should have X amount of home runs because he's getting paid X amount of dollars. That's just weird to me.
Yeah, that's fair. This is sports radio though, so just saying. What's crazy? He hasn't even been the Mets' best hitter this year. It's been Pete Alonso.
Yeah, and they didn't even want to sign him.
That's just baseball though, man. Like that's just how it works. Zach, I got to run. Thanks for your time. Have a good weekend. Be safe on your drive to Illinois, all right?
Appreciate you, Jay Smith.
See ya. That is Zack Gray. Check him out on X at ZG, the Grapevine, professional sports gambler. He sells tools to help you make better bets. Just click that link in his bio. I'll be back on Monday. Have a good, safe weekend. Have a good 4th of July. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next.